Gamer Braves?
What's up, fellow warriors of light? This is Wan Amirul from Gamer Braves, and today we're doing things a little special and checking out Fantasian. The new RPG by Mistwalker and Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi is available exclusively on Apple Arcade, complete with controller support if you don't like tapping on your phone screen. So there's a few things to bring up about Fantasian. First off, the game is basically a Final Fantasy game, down to its plot. You play as Leo, a thief on a quest to save the world from the Bacteria infestation. I promise you this is a real thing. You go through a lot of Final Fantasy tropes like the quirky white mage, evil gods, and an airship, but one thing unique is how it's presented. Fantasian's maps are all physical, real dioramas that exist. Your characters are just 3D models imposed over them, and it looks all the better for it. Seriously, if nothing else, Fantasian is one of the most unique looking JRPGs out this year, if only that it's got the kind of anime-esque characters against its unique backgrounds. It's not just the towns either, even the battle stages have that field blur going on that just makes everything look good. So Fantasian is pretty much an old school JRPG, although don't expect any kind of sick builds like Bravely Default. Fantasian goes the route of the single build RPG instead, with each character being locked to their job classes. No scummery here since characters progress pretty linearly. What it does do different from your stock JRPG is how combat works. Notice how enemies aren't standing in a straight line here. That's because your attacks have arcs to them, with some attacks being able to go through single targets. What this means is you want to plot your attacks like a graph, hitting as many targets at once as possible. It's a pretty clever system, but it has its drawbacks, since some fights like the bosses insist on using low camera angles, which adds a whole new level of difficulty since this angle, well, sucks for positioning. Still, the fact that you're choosing between straight lines, AoEs, and curve shots is pretty cool, especially once the enemies start messing with you by having enemies whose job is to protect the enemies behind them. They've also done something really cool with the random encounters, which is the Dimengeon system. What this does is that any encounter with enemies you've already fought are just tucked away in the top right of the screen. Now it's important to note this doesn't skip the fight. Think of it as only a delay, because eventually the Dimengeon gets full. At any point you can open up the Dimengeon and fight every enemy at once in a really cool sequence that makes a whole use of the game's combat system. There's even power-ups that will spawn every turn, rewarding you for targeting them and some enemies as well, with buffs or extra turns. On the other hand, skipping fights also means you don't run into that classic JRPG problem of being at a super serious part of the story, where time is of the essence, but getting mobbed by jobbers. Seriously, it's a really cool feature, and limiting the size of the Dimengeon also makes sure you go back and finish your food. Naturally, bosses and special encounters can't be skipped, so if nothing else, you need to clear those Dimengeon fights to learn how to use your character before your party gets wiped by a giant tree. My main gripe with the game is that it's incredibly linear. Things don't happen until the game tells you they can, such as with the tutorial boss not getting a weakness until your character tells you about it. It does some weird stuff too, like one of the other boss's weaknesses being locked to its animation cycle, which you really wouldn't expect in a turn-based RPG. Fantasian gets a solid 8 out of 10. Although you can clearly see the Final Fantasy-isms, it's not content to just ride on those coattails. It does enough new both visually and mechanically to be its own thing. It's also totally a full-fledged JRPG rather than a mobile game, and that means cutscenes galore. Fantasian is actually only at its first part, which clocks in at about 20 hours, with part 2 coming later this year. Still, it's a great big release for the Apple Arcade, although the exclusivity means unless you've got a MacBook, iPad, or iPhone, you're not going to be able to play it. This has been Wan Amirul from Gamer Braves. Enjoy! So this comment comes from Tyrone Cummins, commenting on our Asus ROG Phone 5 review. Tyrone says, "Hi, can you review Asus ROG Phone 5 Pro Color Vision display please?" So here's the great thing about the ROG phones, it's that the ones we did review are basically either extreme of the quality scale with the ROG Phone 5 series. Basically, imagine like my review for those phones, and just put the pros somewhere in the middle of that. Thanks for commenting, and don't forget to leave your own comment for a chance to get it read in the next video. See you! Hey there! Thank you so much for watching our videos. Don't forget to give us a subscribe if you'd like to see more, and like so we know what kind of content you want to see. Got suggestions for new content? Let us know in the comments below too. Thank you so much again for watching. Take care, dudes.